George is trying to hit me in the head with the boom. For some reason, I don't know why he would do that. Always been nothing but charming to him. All right, you going, Dave?
Yeah, ready.
You ready? Hello, welcome to another episode of Returning to the Theatre Podcast with Scroobius Pip. And we have an advert. It's unusual. We've been very selective with our adverts this time. This is someone who helped us out with the Kickstarter campaign, which is why you're getting all this for free, so do support them. Fallen London is an award-winning story-based text adventure game that you can play in your browser, and it's free. This is crazy. They paid for this advert. It's set in the reign of Queen Victoria. London's been stolen and dragged below ground to a vast cavern where hell is close, immortality is cheap, and the wine is made of mushrooms. Fallen London offers you different stories depending on your character's choices, including things you never usually get to do in games: run a salon, run a newspaper, or behave so disgracefully that you have to flee the city and write pleading letters home. There are 1.2 million words of darkly funny stories to enjoy. Sign up at failbettergames.com/RHLSTP RHLSTP to get a treat just for RHLSTP listeners/viewers. Thank you very much for that, and thank you for supporting our podcasts. Now enjoy Richard Herring's Leicester Square Theatre Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Leicester Square Theatre. Please welcome a man who helped compile the 1990 West London phone book. It's Richard Herring! Thank you very much. Hello! How are you doing? Welcome to Richard Herring's Leicester Square Theatre Podcast. There will be some cool kids watching today because we've got someone cool on. They call it RHLSTP. And we've got a lovely audience here. You two are much better than last week's audience. A lot better. There was no one sitting there last week. There was just that 2 empty seats, and then you two now here. What's your name, madam? Zoe. It's lovely to meet you. You got a badge there. I'm just zooming in on the badge. Just want to make that. Thank you for buying that. They cost £1, didn't it? That will help us make. What do you do for a living, Zoe? You work for a housing association, and I've stolen £1 off you. I feel pretty mad. Thank you. Is it good? Is it a good housing association, or are you throwing poor people out of houses? All the time. Yeah, good. Good. Because now people are saying, "Yeah, is this your?" He's done pretty well for himself, hasn't he? I was going to say, is this someone you're helping care for in the community? How you doing, Graham? You all right?
Yeah, very well.
Good. That's good. He hasn't assuaged me of that feeling, having spoken to... What do you do for a living, Graham?
I work for a housing association.
You work for the housing association. Well, did you meet at the housing association together? I should be filming all of this. You didn't meet at the housing association. You were in there, and then you said, I can get you into the housing association. Is that why you got together, just for the housing association job? Yeah, mainly for that. That's good. It's good. Is it good money, the housing association? Yeah, better than what you were doing before, down and out in the streets. Yeah, good. It's nice that you've helped. I'm glad. Nice you've helped him and made him feel part of the community. So it's good to be here. I will now introduce my second guest. I'm sorry, my only guest this week. It's a very different week, because many things have happened. He is probably best known for his appearance on the short films The Corner Boys. Anyone seen that?
Yep.
Yeah, good, isn't it? It's rarely it's something that's actually quite good that I've mentioned at the top. Ladies and gentlemen, Scroobius Pip! Ladies and gentlemen, here he comes, hopefully. There he is. Come in. Welcome. Thank you very much. Sit down. There's the microphone.
Hello.
The Corner Boys.
Yes.
It's good. My wife said to me, just as I was nearly finished preparing for this, she said she'd seen you interview Brett Goldstein.
Excellent.
And then they played some of The Corner Boys.
Yes,
which
it was good fun.
Short films you were in.
Yeah, we did these little shorts about two kind of middle-aged drug dealers who are on a corner, but the kind of unwritten bit is we're on the wrong corner,
Right.
but we're too scared to leave because we've got to sell all the drugs or we'll get in trouble.
Yeah.
So they go on just continually, just us not selling anything because we're on the wrong corner. Well, there's no one going to be there, but yeah, that's kind of all they are. But it's good fun.
Are you doing more of them? There's 3 of them I've
Yeah,
seen.
we've done 3, and we're going to do more. Brett Goldstein and John Drever, who I'm doing with, have just done Super Bob, which is amazing. And yeah, now they've finished that, we're going to do a couple more, we think.
Cool. Will it become a movie as well, like Super Bob has?
I don't know. That'd be nice. John keeps joking that we're going to just do them for years and then make Super Boyhood, which Boyhood is obviously the Richard Linklater film, which he filmed over 30 years. So yeah.
And are they quite? Is it quite scripted, or is it quite? It has a feel of being improvised, but is it?
Yeah, there's a mixture. We'll email back and forth some ideas and scripts, and then we'll forget it all and talk nonsense on the day. The biggest problem for John editing is just us giggling at each other all the time, because Brett's he's got a funny looking face.
He has.
And his voice is funny, so yeah, and similar. So it's kind of we go back and forth on that.
Was that something you wanted to get into? As well as into acting as well.
Yeah. So I'm on a year or two off from gigs at the moment, and I've been doing some acting. And the first film I've got is I just did earlier this year is a Guy Ritchie film that comes out next year, and then I've been doing a TV series by Kurt Stutter, who wrote Sons of Anarchy and The Shield and stuff like that. And it's great because everyone else on them of actors and that, and I just run around all excited, just going oh, look at that! I got to ride a horse on a beach, with a sword. Brilliant. The best was in Wales. It was amazing.
But luckily with that beard, you don't have to do as much acting as the others.
Exactly, it's all covered. Or both the things I've got cast in are medieval.
All right.
Because I look proper fucking medieval. So I'm just trading off that at the moment, and it's fine. There's no real acting there. There's just turn up, have beard, leave.
Get on horse.
Get on a horse, yeah.
We've already talked with each other this week at great length.
Yeah, we talked for 90 minutes almost, I think it was in the end.
So we've traded off on podcasts. I did your podcast on Wednesday, which will be out before this, I believe.
It'll be out before this. So you will have been on my podcast on December 2nd, I think.
Right, I think this is out in sort of January.
So it's so confusing because it's the future to people here, but the past to other people listening.
It is.
It's manic.
Yeah. So, we've probably said everything we need to say to each other already.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on.
That's all right.
It's been really lovely. It was great. I do my Distraction Pieces podcast, and we did. I like it because it ranges from half an hour sometimes to 90 minutes, and we got a good 90 minutes out of it, so it went well. But I've had some where it's just been really... It's got a bit stuck,
right.
And it was nice that we spoke perfectly comfortably and freely, and it felt like we didn't have to fill anything.
I could go on if I need to. That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean that was great. I got some emails done.
So you've got a disparate number of guests, kind of a smorgasbord of musicians and comedians. And
it's a real range from a Wes Borland from Limp Bizkit to Billy Bragg to Simon Pegg to Russell Brand and Paddy Considine, all sorts of
How do you get all those people on it? Because then, can I get them on mine?
Yeah, easy. Mainly Twitter.
Yeah.
Mainly Twitter. But that was exactly it. I realised I was listening to a lot of podcasts, and I realised that from doing music, I'd met a lot of people who were nice.
Yeah.
And it was kind of met or had contacts with. I decided to do a podcast as soon as Twitter brought that thing in that you could look at your followers and click who's verified, and therefore they're worth having as a guest, right? That was, and if they're following me, they must know who I am. So I then just started to go through that list and hit people up.
I've never thought of looking through
it's a good scam.
Admittedly, so many followers, it would take me a long time to do that.
But there's the verified button. There's a separate thing that you can click, so it only brings up the verified one. It gets rid of all these people.
Yeah, good.
It filters them out and just holds the podcast worthy.
No, well that could be useful. Though it might be upsetting if I look at that and find it's nobody.
Yeah, that would be awkward. It would just be me on again. He's verified.
But it's kind of interesting that people. I mean, that is the great thing about Twitter. I think in terms of, and for this as well, that you will contact people who, if you try to contact them via their agent, won't. If ever I had tried to get someone on via their agent, it becomes quite difficult.
I've not had anyone on via their agent, and we're on this. I think you're the 70th guest. I think.
Really?
And the only time I've had an agent get in touch was when I was doing this. I was having Simon Pegg on, and I'd all arrange it, and the agent got in touch, and I was like, it's going to be awkward. They were just being lovely. They said, can we hear it before it goes out? I was like, not really. It's not really how it works. We kind of do it because it was normally a week's turnover at that point. I was like, not really. And they're like, well, can you just send us some bullet points because we want to try and get some extra press for it? I was like, all right, I thought you were checking up on me. As though if it's just to get extra press and help out, then sure, listen away. It was more the fear of I don't want them to say you can't have this in there, you can't have that.
Yeah.
When it's, you know.
Yeah, that can be. Well, people have, as we were saying, people do open up in this podcast.
Really
sometimes,
do.
So
Yeah.
but there's something about the medium of it. It's very, and it's, well, I suppose because I think like we've sort of in very different fields, we've sort of embraced similar ways of doing things. Because you're a very self-contained unit of creativity.
Yeah.
So
completely.
you started off in living in, which I want to know a lot about. Stanford-le-Hope is where you grew up.
I still live there.
Do you?
I lived there for 34 years.
It doesn't
Probably
sound like
33. I had a year in Wolverhampton.
Oh, did you?
We don't talk about
It
that.
doesn't sound. It doesn't sound like a real place, Stanford-le-Hope.
No, it doesn't.
And it sounds like it's half French.
Do you think it sounds fancy or not fancy? I
don't
can
know,
never
it
decide.
Sounds like it sounds like it's in The Hobbit or something.
Yeah,
It doesn't feel like it's a real
Instead,
place.
it's in between Tilbury and Basildon. So couldn't be less Hobbitish,
Yeah.
could it? Really? It's not. It's a
like
little
the
town.
Hope as well. It sort of feels like if you've got the potential there for it to be nice, but it's not.
No.
It's not nice.
Stanford-le-Hope, as
There's
it's
always
commonly called.
there's the dream that if you live there long enough, something may
So
blossom.
imagine what could happen. Stay here, stick it out. I've lived there my whole life. It's a little town. It's a weird one because it's not amazing, but I realised for years I thought I loved Stanford, and then I realised that I loved basically all the stuff in my living room because that's where I stay. That's the only place in Stanford I go to. So yeah, Stanford's great. It's like, I mean my house and my mum's house, and that's it. But it's a weird one. It's kind of it's not as horrible as I make out. There is still some racism there, some homophobia, like some just small-mindedness. But for some reason, I really feel it's important to remain surrounded and aware of that kind of thing at points. I did a few Christmases ago. This is a story that involves you, so perfectly topical. But I did one of Robin Ince's shows at Christmas.
Oh yeah.
And being a fan of so much comedy and all sorts, I'd just done this gig at where did I do it? At Shepherd's Bush Empire. It was one of their big ones, and there was you. There was I think Coogan had come on and Brian Cox and loads of amazing people, and I'd got to do a poem in a sold-out Shepherd's Bush Empire, and everyone paid attention, enjoyed it, and it was amazing. And then I left to get the last train home, and some girls from Tilbury tried to steal my trainers and set my beard on fire. And that's really good for keeping you grounded, I think. If there was a point where I was like, man, I'm mixing in some good circles here. This is really, I don't know, it's why I've stayed there. And I also feel, again, when you've got a life where you tour an awful lot, if you move somewhere, you're not really going to get to know that area. Or particularly the time I moved last, I was touring 8-9 months of the year. So it's like, I'd rather the bits where I am home, it feels like home. Yeah. And it's familiar.
That's cool. So you worked in HMV.
I worked in HMV for years, yeah.
Where you met Don Lassac.
That's where I met Dan, yeah. And I loved HMV. I thought it was good. That was in the days when HMV was staffed with... that sounds like I'm about to insult the staff. But it was kind of known that HMV staff were all really into music. And like you could go in there and ask advice and they had back catalogue. And a Virgin Megastore was more... They just had the big new releases and that. So... Yeah, particularly as it was kind of file sharing and that. Yeah. It was genuinely a great education in music and film because the people who worked there were passionate about it. So you could generally like get recommendations and get tons of good stuff. So,
how did you progress to doing your own stuff? I mean, was it all very kind of homemade and you set up a production company?
Yeah, it was all very homemade. I was doing music and working in HMV and kind of telling myself that I'm a musician, but I'm doing a job just to pay the bills. And then it got to a point where I was getting offered I'd got up to a lower management or whatever, and they were offering, I think I got offered or asked to apply for an assistant manager job. And I thought, right, either I need to stop pretending I'm a musician and focus on retail, which I must add I think is fine. Like, I really enjoyed it. I was good at retail. I can sell shit. I'm good at selling Scum on £5 to people from Essex, the film Scum, not. So yeah, we kind of. I decided, right. I thought I saved up for a while, and then I thought, right, I'll take a year off to just do music. So I've got nothing. I've not got a job to fall back on at this point. And if I don't succeed after a year, I'll stop and then I'll go on and do something else. And it was almost a year to the day that Thou Shalt Always Kill came out, which was my first single with Dan the Sack.
Yeah.
And it got in the top 40, and yeah, I've not had to go back yet.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of kind of amazing to make that decision.
Yeah, yeah.
And not from a position of, I mean, you had enough, you'd saved up enough money to live for a year, but I'm presuming not in great luxury.
I was going to say that we were discussing earlier that not really ones for spending money on loads of things or luxuries, and it was I look at it now and I think it was something like 5 or 6 grand I'd saved to live for a year. But I lived at home with my mum, and I spent a lot of it. I spent 700 quid on a 1987 Toyota Space Cruiser,
right,
which the seats could fold down to make a bed. So I toured the country and lived in that for a good while. So. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of interesting because I think you're sort of wanting to do something and then getting out there and doing it, and a lot of people say, "Oh, I can't do this because it's too difficult." And it is, breaking into music, I would imagine, is especially as someone doing it yourself, is more difficult, and in this century, it's more difficult than anything.
Turns out it's easy. I did it for a year, had a song in the top 40.
Yeah.
Been doing it ever since. It's a piss. I don't know all this kind of touring for years and never made. It was easy.
Yeah.
But no, I do.
I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to take the next year and I'm going to
do it. I do think there is an element of, like, I've always been convinced that even just within my circle of friends, I don't think I'm particularly more talented than a lot of them. Like, some of them, proper more talented than. There's some idiots. But the majority of them, no more talented, but the simple thing being, I went and did it.
Yeah.
Like, it was that actual thing of going, right, no, I'm actually going to do this, and then that's, if you do it, then... If you don't do it, there's nothing they can buy or can engage in.
If you don't do it, it's not going to happen.
That is the
rule. If you don't bother trying to do it, you won't do it.
That old fable. Like my granddad used to say. No, but again, I can't remember who I heard it. I'm sure it was a Seinfeld quote or something, where it just said, if you've got something to fall back on, then you're going to fall back.
Yeah.
So it was that thing of going, right, I'm not going to have a job. I'm not going to have a career path anymore. Therefore, the music had to succeed, and... That's kind of the way it's gone.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to this about Louisa a few weeks ago, Louisa Arman, and a few weeks ago about how, although I think like within the arts industry, there's a lot of rich people now who are, who public school educated and have a parent who can buy them somewhere to live, and who are able to do this job because it does take a certain amount of not earning any money and work. 100%. So if they have that money to go. But also, if you don't have the money and you don't have anything there, then you really have to work.
You really have to push every day.
So in a sense that you think, oh, it's not fair because of this, but actually, because I think you really need the drive to make it in any of this.
I couldn't agree more. I was doing... at first I went around the country a lot, and that was a nerves thing as much as anything. I was far more comfortable performing in front of people. I could... have a legitimate feeling that I will never see again. I mean, that's not very ambitious on career, but so if it's shit, then it's like, it doesn't matter, I'm not here. Rather than playing in front of my friends. But then when I was back in Essex, I was coming in and doing 3 or 4 open mics a week in London, just because you could. It was an option, and you don't know who's going to be there. And I learnt, again, it was pure chance, but I learnt that gave me the image of being far more successful than I was, because I was a 6'4" guy with a beard called Scroobius Pip. It sticks in your mind. So if people were in the spoken word scene, someone had mentioned they'd seen this guy, and someone else would go, oh yeah, I've seen him, and not kind of registering that they'd all seen me at nights that anyone could have got up and performed at, because there's instantly that, oh yeah, I've seen him as well. It's like, well, it gives the illusion that I'm this successful touring artist when I just turned up a lot. I wasn't getting paid anywhere.
But when you were driving around the country, were you generally turning up at venues and seeing if there was a gig, or had you...
What I did was, me and my mate Chris, who's here tonight, and was actually here last week for Hal as well. We watched Hal last week. It was great. So we would tour around, and originally I had like either a boombox with some backing tracks on, or I had a little speaker and I'd just do spoken word, or I'd beatbox into a loop pedal and rap over the top, which sounds great in films and stuff, but when you're doing it in Manchester city centre, they're not that up for it. They don't really want to hear poetry. I think it was in Manchester we lasted 10 minutes before thinking we were going to have all of our equipment robbed, and it didn't cost much. So we quite early on just went, right, actually, just go into where the most people are isn't actually that logical because they're there for a reason and they're busy.
Yeah.
So what we then started doing was we'd get to each town and we'd buy a magazine of some sort and look up the gig listings and see who was similar. So if there's someone in a similar a genre to me, they will literally get everyone, all my potential fan base, and literally line them up against a wall for me outside their gig. So I'd just turn up to their gigs and do a little performance. I was always adamant I wouldn't busk or try and sell anything because I think that instantly changes the mindset. You're instantly on the defensive a bit if someone's saying, sling some money. I'd say at the beginning, look, there's a gig, there's going to be some support bands, you've paid for that, you've got one free, buy one, get one free. So I'd do a little, I'd do a few songs, and I'd hand out flyers of where they could hear more about me. And again, that was always key to me because the thing was, no matter how good you are, it's hugely arrogant to think that they're going to remember you in the morning when they're on their way to see a band that they were already aware of and love. Yeah. The fact is they're going to watch them and that's what they'll remember the next day. Or they'll meet a girl and they'll remember that they met a girl rather than some bearded bloke in a suit shouting at them. So I'd make sure they had something in their pocket that they could then find that and go, oh, right, I remember that guy. And yes, so we did that for a bit and it kind of... It's weird. One of the gigs was a $1.65 gig in Camden at the Barfly. And when I then... So that was in probably 2006 maybe. And when I released my first solo record on my own label in 2011, someone in that in that queue had made a beat for it because he'd enjoyed it and got in touch down the line. And it's just those weird things of people that had played on them original shows just all tied together. Yeah, and the first record you put out, you didn't, you just put a fake barcode on it. So that was the first, that was in 2000, like, so I've got a tattoo on my leg there that's a pistol, and I've got a commemorative pistol for when my label launched properly in 2011. Yeah. But on my ankle there, I've got a tiny little one. So on that one, it says SDR11, and that's a record label is Speech Development Records, and on the one there, it says SDR06, because it technically launched in 2006, but it didn't have a barcode on it. It had a catalogue number, but I didn't register the catalogue number anywhere. That was just numbers. I just saw them on records and thought, should pop one of them on. So my original launch of the label was just me selling them hand to hand or over MySpace. So the proper launch where it was in shops and stuff and had barcodes that worked was in 2011. Right. But again, that sort of shows this spirit of just wanting to get the stuff out there, and again the spirit of conning people. Yeah. Of making them think I'm already successful because they're like, oh, he's got an album out. It's like, I paid that man to make it. I worked in a record shop. I saved up and I paid a man to make 1,000 of them up for me. And that was that. It was the illusion of being signed and being successful. It's like, no, idiots. Yeah. But I think your stuff is very... It's fine now, I am signed and stuff like that, so but I mean, it's doing it yourself, which I guess, I think, as we talked about in the other podcast, the internet allows smaller acts that are, that don't have that massive reach to be successful and to make money. And your website is, I mean, you've got like loads of merch. I've got loads of merch. You've got an apron you can buy on your website, for example. I've got woolly hats. Yeah. All sorts of stuff. Mugs. Yeah. I'm about to. It might be out by now when this goes out. I've had a little action figure made. This artist called Riker, who's an amazing artist, and his art sells for stupid amounts of money. He wanted to make these little plastic Scroobius Pip action figures. I was like, I'm well up for that. So there's stupid amounts of merch on my website, which is it's a lucky thing of coming from music, because that seems far more acceptable and part of the thing. I remember when a year I did the Edinburgh Fringe, and it was the year you did We're All Gonna Die. Yeah. I had after the show, I'd have my merch outside, and I had a few different bits. And I remember a Nick Helm coming up to me afterwards and saying that kind of, how do I do this? Like, how? Because he felt incredibly awkward doing that, but because I'm so used to that in music, that that's what you have to have your merch. That's how you make your money. But he was like, he felt, I feel like I'm being greedy or anything kind of thing afterwards, like being there and trying to sell it. I was like, no, that's what you do, isn't it? And I was the only one in that particular bit that ever I had to get him to get a special table out for me and everything, because no one else was doing any merch. I was like, I've got loads. I've got a book.
But I think also, well, I was looking, you did your Edinburgh Fringe. It must have been the same year.
Yeah.
You did a double DVD or CD.
Yeah. I did a double DVD of that, and again, that was trying to look at being a massive fan of stand-up. It was trying to look at. I always like trying to look at what works in different genres and different areas. So I did that live show as a £5 download in the same way that Louis C.K. had blown that up, and Aziz Ansari and all these other people. And then I did a double DVD, but with loads of extras, because again, it seemed that people didn't do it. Or on films, you don't get that many extras anymore. No. So I did a disc where Tim Key interviews me, and then I did a chat with Kate Tempest and Musa Wonga and Polar Bear and all these extra bits and all the music videos I've directed, all my solo ones were on there, and all the just tons of extra bits. And
but it's like only a tenner, but then because you're producing it yourself, then that
exactly because
works.
it wasn't. I didn't. The Edinburgh show was the first thing that I decided not to make available on iTunes or Amazon or anywhere else. So it's only there. Yeah. Because again, it makes it exactly. You can make it ridiculously cheap. The audience are getting a deal, and you're getting 100% of it, rather than this tiny little a section.
Well, it's very similar. Only again, it's very similar to Go Faster Stripe, who make my DVDs. It's like you're not bothering to encrypt it.
I spoke to one of the guys at Go Faster to get advice at the time, because I bought the Fist of Fun one.
Right.
That they'd put out you guys and things like that. I hit them up to kind of make some inquiries and say, what do you think the benefits are of this and that? So it's literally
well, the thing is, because by not encrypting it. You're trusting that your fans. Yeah. Well, also there's not millions of pounds in reproducing our stuff. The people who want it will buy it, and the people who don't want it, but they know if they trust you. If you're giving it for £10, then no one's going to go, oh, let's put this up online as well. Because you go, well, let's not do that.
I did on my first a solo on the proper solo record in 2011, which is called Distraction Pieces, which ended up being the name of my podcast. A week before the album came out, I released a fake torrent of it and uploaded it. And the torrent, I used the original beats, so it was all the right song lengths and times. So before you download, you wouldn't know. And it was basically a DVD commentary. It was me just talking over the beats and first of all explaining that if you're stealing this, you're stealing directly from me. But then saying that the first song, this is the drums are by Travis Barker, and just doing this and explaining everyone involved, and then just really getting across in a hopefully entertaining way. I was watching a transfer deadline day on Sky Sports at the same time, so I was also giving some updates on what Joey Barton was doing and stuff like that, and kind of just it was a way of making it a light and fun, but also making it clear that there's not some major label that you're ripping off here. Everyone I mentioned, you get some interesting facts, like he did the drum, like Zane Lowe produced this beat, and he hadn't produced anything in ages since he did this, and now he's done this and that. And so you had some interesting stuff, but it made generally everyone who contacted me who got it did go, yeah, fair play. I went and paid for it after that, because it was, you've got that, and then you're like, all right, there's some effort there to say, don't be a dick, instead of just chastising people, just kind of trying to make it a more entertaining and interesting way of getting that message across.
Sure. I mean, what I like about your stuff, obviously, is very. I mean, there is an element of comedy within it. You've obviously got a like of comedy background, but it's very lyrically witty and clever. So, what comedians would you? Are you as influenced by comedians as you are by musicians?
Yeah, hugely. And I think the thing that where my subject matter wise, I tend to go quite dark and serious at points. I think it's really essential to use some humour in there as well to get that across. And again, I mean, looking at them like across to America, otherwise I'm just going to keep mentioning you and other people and it will get awkward. But looking across to America, people like Louis C.K. and Doug Stanhope, people like that, who will talk about some really serious and dark stuff, but will subvert it so well by getting either really offensive or really shocking, and then bringing it all round to having a more serious meaning. And again, I like with the Edinburgh Fringe show, the thing I was most nervous about was I'd written some gags to go in between and to link things and to make it all go together and to purposely have these moments of lightness that then turn into a really serious dark bit. And that was the bit I was most nervous about, because I'd never had anything like that in that area, and particularly Edinburgh, it being known for its comedy, and I was essentially doing a spoken word show rather than a stand-up show. The mixture of that kind of thing, and seeing people that are so skilled in getting serious messages across, but it not feeling like a lecture. I think particularly with spoken word, in that whole scene, you're always at risk of feeling like people are coming out and getting chastised and then sent home to think about all the wrong in the world. It's like, it shouldn't be that. My aim has always been that when people come out and see anything I'm doing, that it's a good night out and it's entertaining. Yeah. And then hopefully there's some interesting things to talk about or think about or debate afterwards, but in general, the primary part should be they've had fun.
Yeah, because for me, I know I always go on, I don't really like music. I do like music, but I find it so much of it is, you know, I think when you're growing up as well, so much pop music, it's so glib and the lyrics are so... I always liked music that was lyrically interesting. And it seems completely. To me to not, you know, and the music's obviously a big part of it, but to have that opportunity and not use your song to get something across, or to have the poetry of language as well as music.
Completely. Always used to annoy me, and I use Coldplay as an example, which they're an easy target. But it always used to annoy me when Coldplay were doing an awful lot of really good political stuff and really good charity stuff, and then they'd release another a weepy love song, and it's like 10% of your audience are going to see that interview where you talked about some really serious stuff. 100% of your audience are going to hear this song, and you can put some content and some seriousness in there, and still do it in a way that isn't, you know, they're really talented musicians, so you could address some serious subjects in a way that's still enjoyable, that's still artistic, but all of your audience will hear it, rather than the few who are looking at this interview where you're, or where you've drawn on your hand or some shit or whatever they used to do.
I played Trivial Pursuit with him, so there you go.
Did you win?
I can't remember, but every time he landed on history, we sang Yellow at him.
Brilliant. Did he call them cheeses or wedges?
I wish I could remember. To be honest, I didn't know.
It's important.
He's a friend of Al Murray's, and I went round to Al Murray's house, and he was there.
He's meant to be lovely.
He's lovely. He's a really nice guy. I really, really like him. I didn't really know because I don't know much about pop music, and it was early on, but they were.
He hated it.
They were pretty.
I don't know. You don't really.
The second time I saw him, I said, "I've just been to Australia. Your album's on for sale in Australia. You're doing really well."
Yeah.
He went,
Thanks, Richard.
He went, it's going okay. That's how little I certainly knew about music then. But yeah, he's nice guy. So you've obviously got a stutter.
Yes, I have got a stutter.
I noticed it with my ears. And is that... you think this came from a drowning incident?
Yeah, it came from when I was drowning. I find stutters absolutely fascinating because we don't really understand them. But when I was 16 or so, I found out I had hypnosis, or 14 or 15, I had hypnosis, because it turns out that stutters generally come from a traumatic experience. You're not born, you don't tend to be born with a stutter. See, I'm stuttering more now we're talking about it, Jesus. And so when I was 5 or 6, I was on holiday in France and I nearly drowned. I was walking along the beach and a wave swept up and took me out, and my dad came out and saved me. And at the time I didn't know it was a serious thing because my parents really played it down. Like, I always remember my dad just saying, "Oh, you ruined my trainers." And so it was played down, but my mum, again, I found this out years and years later, my mum, after it, was starting to really panic because she kept hearing me talking just on my own. Yeah. She's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm talking to the voices." And I could hear apparently I could hear voices. So they took me down to Lourdes and got holy water and put holy water in my ears to get rid of the demons.
Wow. Did it work?
I think it gave me a stutter, that damn holy water. I'm going to sue the Vatican. But yeah, no, again, I got that, and then it developed more and more as I was growing up. It was worse at school. It's things like it's worse on the phone and stuff like that. But it's interesting, man.
Well, it isn't, but it's also interesting. I mean, there are other performers. Daniel Kitson is a good example. That you would sort of think, well, that's another hurdle to overcome if you're going to be a singer or a performance artist.
Again, I get tons of really nice messages from people with stutters saying how brave it is and stuff like that to do. Because again, the podcast, the radio show, everything kind of based around speech. And I always feel bad because I'm just forgetful. And I start these things and commit to them and forget that I've got to start. Genuinely, when I got my radio show on XFM, I'd kind of agreed to it. And then they made a deal, or someone did a tweet saying it's so bold of them to give a hip-hop show to a white guy in his 30s from Essex who's got a stutter. And I was like, oh shit, yeah, that's who I am, aren't I? I'm not a 20-year-old black kid from the Bronx, am I? Shit. So yeah, genuinely I just forget these things. And then I've committed to it, so I can't really do much about it. But no, it doesn't bother me. I always think of the stutter as more of an accent type thing. Like I've got people, I was with a mate, Aris, who's from Newcastle, and he sounds ridiculous. And it's no different from me sounding, ridiculous at points when I stutter. So yeah, I kind of think of it like that. Almost every word is a mess from his mouth, so it's more W's and D's that I get stuck with. So yeah, it's only a few.
That's fair enough. I'll try it. Have you ever seen a ghost? If you've had voices in your head, that might count.
Maybe I've heard a ghost. I don't think I've ever seen a ghost. No, it's always, I find, it always annoys me that people often see ghosts. Like, I had a friend of mine who really, really believes in ghosts, and she had this big experience where she was away somewhere and staying somewhere a bit spooky, and this, a figure appeared at the end of her bed and was there, and it was scared her, and then it went away in the morning and stuff like that.
It was probably Hal Cruttenden.
Yeah, it probably was, with his sleep gropes. Questionable. And I just had to explain what that is you were asleep.
Yes.
Is what happened there, because the clue is you were in bed, and then you went to sleep.
Yeah.
That's the clue. That's the starting clue. And then you woke up. And there was a ghost at the end of bed. You didn't wake up. You had a dream that there was a ghost at the end of your bed.
But the ghosts know that, and so wouldn't they appear deliberately at a time when it would be suspicious?
Maybe.
To keep the air of mystery going, which I think they like.
That's they're probably into
Otherwise,
that.
they would just, if they didn't want the mystery, they'd just go, hello, we are real.
Yeah,
either leave us alone or whatever.
And that's the thing that gets me is I know for a fact I would fuck about so much if I wouldn't be. They wouldn't be able to hold me down. I'd be appearing and doing all sorts of kooky stuff. So I don't believe that everyone who's ever died has towed the line of keeping it a bit mysterious and pushing a DVD over and stuff like that. It's like as if you can get them all to toe the line. There would have been some prick just really messing about. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you might be right. You may have. Have you ever seen a Bigfoot?
I've got big feet.
Yeah.
Size 11, 12.
That's quite good.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I like your shoes.
Thank you very much.
It's not. This
is
not
my.
You can't just shout things out. I've had to work very hard to get this position where I can say stuff to Scroobius Pip. This is like. And now you got to shout. I like your shoes.
This is my third. This is actually my third pair of these.
Is it?
So I like them. I'm terrible at making. I don't like having unnecessary decisions in my life.
Yeah.
So years ago, I stopped having anything other than the exact same brand of black pants.
Right.
Because I thought making the decision of what pants to wear is a decision I don't need in my life. That's unnecessary thought. Each morning, go, should I wear these ones? Or I just pick them up and put them on.
Yeah.
And I got a pair of these trainers years ago, and now I just order a new pair on the regular.
I'll just zoom in on them for.
They're
the same as I did to that woman's breast. It's not as exciting this.
They're Swizz Beats Reebok,
Oh,
so made by the producer Swizz Beats.
Oh, cool.
Which is with 3 Zs.
Cool. Well, maybe we'll get sent some free ones now.
Yeah,
we put it on this.
hopefully.
Yeah, I think I'd look good wearing those.
Yeah, we'd all. I think everyone could do with some nice Swizz Beats Reeboks.
Good. Anything else you'd like to say before we move on? Is it all right?
I like your shoes, Rick.
Thank you. They are good. They're proper Geoffrey West shoes.
Yeah.
I'll just go into their boots. They're quite old now. I've just recently had them resold for the 3rd time. There we go. They cost they're like 200 quid or something.
Yeah.
They're a lot. They're good shoes.
Geoffrey West, that's 1 Z, isn't it?
He's from Northampton, as all the good shoemakers are.
Yeah.
Got some fans in Northampton now.
Northampton in the house.
Yeah. If you were the Prime Minister,
Yes.
would you use nuclear weapons? If you had to, or if
I
you
mean,
didn't
again,
have to.
it's a good reason for me not to be Prime Minister,
Yeah.
because that sounds right fun. That'd be irresistible. As said, I'd fuck about as a ghost.
Yeah.
I'd definitely fuck about as Prime Minister.
It's a shame to have them and not use them. I think.
Yeah, exactly. They cost a fortune. Imagine I never put these bad boys on my feet.
Because
Just left them at home in a box.
When you spent them, you bought them. There must have been loads of times, and they last for a certain amount of time. Then they're decommissioned.
Yeah.
Just at least send them. I'd at least shoot them at the moon or something.
Yeah, just shoot them into space.
Yeah.
Fireworks night.
Yeah.
Big global fireworks night thing. We all shoot our... If we all do decommission, we should all shoot our nukes at the same night into space.
Might have repeat. They all hit the moon. We actually took the moon out. The moon is our friend in many ways.
Yeah.
It's a part of the reason we've survived so long. A lot of the asteroids hit the moon, so you might think, that'd be harmless fun, destroying the moon.
Yeah.
But think of the tides.
Yeah.
Women's period's got to be connected.
Yep, exactly. We wouldn't have anywhere to send creepy old men.
That's true.
At this time, that's topical because of the John.
Yeah.
When this comes out, it won't be topical.
It's almost nostalgic by the time this comes out. It's almost like I love 2015. It'll be by the time this comes out. Remember they did the advert? Oh, what was that about? That old guy, what was his story? Do you think having sex with a robot should be counted as cheating?
No.
Good, thank
you.
Don't. So the voice is rising for the anti it being cheating voice.
You see, I definitely...
It's not a person. It looks like a person. It's not a person.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I'm not even sure that it's going to sound bad if I say I'm not even sure if it's bad that it's a person, because that's definitely cheating. Cheating. Just let me explain further. I've never... There was a thing recently about a pop star got in trouble for using one of them massage parlours that do dirty bits at the end of it. I've never used one myself.
No.
But I was thinking, well, he's not doing that. There's no actual connection with the person there. Yeah. And possibly even less connection than he has mentally when he's at home masturbating over porn. Yeah. So why is that worse? Because it's clinical, it's not emotional, so it's similar to a robot. I'm not saying that Thai massage people are robots. That's offensive.
They could be though. In the future,
they could well be. They probably are now. Now that we think about it. No, again, I find it confusing because why would a robot be more of a sin? Is it a sexy robot?
Definitely.
Well, there you go. If it's a sexy robot, again, that's no different from watching porn and imagining.
Well, that's what I think. Well, there's lots of things that are allowed by in most relationships. Yeah. As just a little release valve, you know. Yeah. You know what it gets like when you... With that, you have to look at that every day. I'm pointing at the bloke. Yeah. That you have to have, imagination at least, eh? Just occasionally, you think that you imagine it's me, don't you? Just occasionally. Tonight you will, even if you're not going to, it'll just pop into your head now. It's because I've done the association. Just for a second, it'll be, oh no.
For both of you as well,
And that's, they can't imprison our minds, can they?
No.
They can imprison our fingers, but they can't imprison our mind. Well, they'll be fine. I think it'll be interesting. It'll be an interesting experience to have sex with a robot. I don't think it'll be that good. No. I'm often an early adopter of technology, and I think
that's one you want to wait until it's... Yeah.
And I think the first sex robots will probably be quite...
Dangerous.
Yeah,
frankly. Edgy, sharp, jagged.
Sharp. But I will still give it a go, just on principle.
Yeah. For the good of everyone.
Yeah. I'll ask you, I'm going to go with one of the other emergency questions that we haven't gone too much. Matthew Plumridge, which is, that's enough on its own, isn't it?
Yeah. My answer is yes.
It's not a yes or no question. Matthew Plumridge, which is, I must have said this the last time. All men have a Plumridge. That's why it's nice. But his ancestor must have had an amazing Plumridge. Must have been like one of those lizards with the necks.
Yeah. Known for it.
For them to call him that, why would you call him? The only reason you would be called that.
Yeah.
He says, would you prefer to shit yourself every time you saw someone eat a banana, or ejaculate every time you saw your mother-in-law / father-in-law / I don't know, in your case, if you're not married.
I'm not married, but yeah.
Partners, parents. Not a very good question. I don't know why.
No, it's tough. I'd rather. I mean, it makes me glad to live in a world where that doesn't have to be a reality. It makes me really... There's a lot of bad things going on in the world, but I don't shit myself every time I see someone eat a banana, and I don't always ejaculate when I see my mother / father-in-law.
You could answer most of my questions in that way. If you had to go for a week's holiday with one of the puppets from Spitting Image, you ever watched Spitting Image?
Yeah, I did, but I was really struggling. Again, like when I was here last week for House One,
it's a hard question.
I was really struggling to remember who people that were on.
Well, David Mitchell gave the. I should have stopped asking the question because David Mitchell gave the perfect answer.
What did he go for?
He went for Melvin Bragg.
Yes.
Because he thinks he would choose somewhere nice to go on holiday, and also the puppet wouldn't be that irritating. You could spend a week with that puppet, and it would probably have a reasonable comfort. The people who were operating would have to stay in character of what they imagined Melvin Bragg would be like.
Yeah.
That would be, even though it isn't Melvin Bragg, it would still be quite an interesting week.
Yeah, no, that'd be nice.
So I think he's answered the question.
Yeah, no, he's nailed it. I would choose to go on holiday with them because David Mitchell seems delightful as well. So I'd just tag along on their holiday if that's acceptable.
Maybe we'll just do that for everyone at the end of the run. All of the guests can go on holiday with the Melvin Bragg. It's going to cost a lot of money. I don't know who will fund it. We'll have to kickstart it.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm up for that.
Do you think people will pay for that? They won't pay for me playing snooker. I'm trying to raise £1 million for me to play snooker against myself.
Yeah.
Like,
not flagged anything weird yet.
People who are listening to this at home will know whether I've succeeded or not. There's still 10 days to go.
Oh, wow.
And I'm at £55,000, which, in one way you go, well, that's not very near to $1 million. In another way, you go, that's £55,000.
It makes me think of when was it Kate Moss or Naomi Campbell was saying, I don't get out of bed for Leicester.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't play snooker with myself for 55 grand.
I wouldn't do that.
How dare you? What do you think I am sitting around hoping to play snooker with myself?
I find it insulting. So it's interesting what people will fund and what they won't. So if I went to them and said, I've got 100 guests I've had on the podcast so far, and I want to pay for them all to go on holiday with the Melvin Bragg Spitting Image puppet, which you'll have to buy from whoever bought it in the auction, and we'll have to find the original puppeteer and the person who did the voice. They're coming as well, but no one can address them. But then it's a much more interesting holiday, isn't it? Because you're on holiday with Stephen Merchant.
Yeah, it's great fun.
I mean, no one would talk to the Melvin Bragg puppet.
No, exactly, the poor puppet. But I think what you should now do is, if by some freak of nature your Kickstarter does not achieve the snooker, you should contact them all and say, would you be willing to keep your bid on, transferring it to pay for a holiday for everyone who's previously been on? Because 55 grand could cover us. We don't have to go anywhere fancy.
That's true. Well, it's up to the Melvin Bragg puppet. That's
exactly.
that's the unknown element of it.
Yeah, I don't think enough expense. If you've given him a budget, you didn't say you couldn't give him a budget.
That's true.
You've got 55 grand. There's 100 people to take away. Take your pick.
We have to find a time when they're all available.
Exactly.
We have to somehow press gang them into the ones who don't want to come.
It's doable.
Who didn't have a very nice time on this.
I mean, a free holiday with Stephen Merchant is it's going to tempt anyone.
He might be one of the ones who's difficult to persuade.
My enthusiasm for a holiday with Stephen Merchant might put Stephen Merchant off at this stage.
Sport is intrinsically stupid. Discuss.
I love sport. I was up until 6 o'clock last night watching sport.
What sport? What sport do you fancy?
Mixed martial arts.
Okay.
Typical.
Nah, it doesn't really
typical
count as a
bearded
sport.
Poet. Loves a bit of cage fighting.
Doesn't really count as a sport when it's just made up. Though.
It's not made up. That's wrestling you're thinking of.
I was deliberately being.
Yeah, I know.
Trying to cage fight you.
Yeah. No, I'm a big fan, and I also enjoy the football.
Yeah.
Again, I do feel they would be sport in general would be among the most challenging things to explain to an alien life form.
Yeah.
So I can see they are kind of ridiculous because again, it's like we're all chasing that ball, and when we're happy if it goes there, but not happy if it goes there.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous, but it's a bit of fun, isn't it? It's a bit of fun.
Yeah. Well, there's an escapism to it. I can understand. And it's a drama without a script.
Genuinely, one of my emotional moments as a human was at a football game. I don't know why I specified as a human. in my other forms, there's been far more emotional moments, but I'm a Millwall fan, and there's a player called Neil Harris, who was nearly our top goal scorer at one point, and then he got testicular cancer.
Okay.
And the club stuck by him. It's all going to get very serious now. The club stuck by him and helped him and kept him on the wage and everything, and he got over he beat his testicular cancer and came back. And it took him a while to get back to speed. And we were towards the end of the season, I think, and we were at home, and he hadn't scored since he'd come back. And we were against, I can't think who, and we're in their area. It's a technical term. in their penalty box. And one player had a chance for quite an easy tap in, and I swear there was about 4 or 5 just passing it around until he got in position, and then he scored. Whole team brought him on their shoulders, brought him to the home fans. Everyone was it was just the most beautifully emotional and human moment from a bunch of burly men who don't really show emotion. So yeah, it felt worthwhile in that moment, Richard.
It's hard for me to resist saying about the 1,000 jokes I thought of during it.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Because although testicular cancer isn't amusing, testicles are really amusing.
Yeah,
That
very
is
funny.
That is the terrible dichotomy I found myself in, and I'm
It's
quite proud of myself for getting through it.
It's obviously, it's a terrible a faux pas to give away anyone else's material or gags on podcasts and that, but there's an Anthony Jeselnik joke that always comes. It's very short, but he just said his friend phoned him up to say he had cancer, and obviously that's never a funny thing to hear from anyone. But it was the way he said it, which just kills me every time.
But it's true also that you gave. Is it true you gave out your phone number on? Was it on the podcast?
I've done that by mistake on Twitter once. When Twitter, I didn't have an iPhone, and there was a thing where you used to have. If you wanted to put a picture on Twitter, you'd text the picture to a number, and then it'd upload it. Sometimes I'd accidentally text that picture to Twitter, and Twitter would tweet saying, you have a photo message from 077 and so on. I'm not going to give it out again now. I've learned from my mistakes. But yeah, every now and then I'd have to then just ignore my phone for a bit, and it wouldn't go well. But yeah, not fun.
But someone did someone ring up who was suicidal?
Yeah, I had an intense one because I've got a few. On the first album, I had a song called Magician's Assistant, which is about self-harm and suicide. And it's weird because this kid rang up and was like, "Hello," and at that point, if I answered one, I'd just pretend I was my brother,
right?
Which is weird because they don't know my brother, but we do sound quite alike. So it was convincing. And I'd say, "Oh no, I'm his brother." He used my phone to say it, so it's not work, but yeah, it's not him. And this kid was like, "Well, I know it's you," and I was like, "Well, yeah, it's not." And I'd already started the lie.
Yeah.
So I'd started this lie, and then he said, "I just wanted to ring to say that I've had a rough time, and a magician's assistant has kept me going until now, but I've decided tonight that I'm going to take my own life," which is tough when you've already started a lie. And you're like, "Well, I'm not him, but don't do it." So I then kind of just discussed, I chatted to him a bit, and he was saying he had tickets to come and see me in a month's time, but he decided this. And I was saying, look, because I have songs like that, I get a lot of people contact me on Facebook and things like that on these subjects, and I'll always try and discuss, but I'm always also really adamant to say I'm not an expert on these subjects, and I do believe people like the Samaritans and Calm are amazingly underused. I love that the Samaritans, it's against their rules. Like my mum's a Samaritan now, and I didn't realise it's against their rules to try and talk anyone out of anything. They're purely there to listen and be a voice and someone to take in, which I think is amazing. So I recommended he talk to the Samaritans, but then I also said that he said he's had a rough time for a while, and the fact was that if he'd bought a ticket to come and see me in a few months, that at some point he felt he had something to live for. Not my gig. I'm not saying that, mate. I'm pretty fucking good live, if I'm honest. So you might want to put this on ice for a few weeks. But no, I just kind of said that if you've invested money in something like that, then there was a point in recent weeks where you've seen yourself alive in the future. So just kind of think of that. And he said goodbye, and I kind of said, look, whatever you choose, I hope it goes, the way you want. And then I did that gig and dedicated that particular song to that guy. And I got a message a few weeks later from one of his mates saying that he was there, and it meant a lot. He didn't want to get in touch again because he felt awkward and weird, but that he was there, and it meant a lot. So that's brilliant. Yeah, pretty good.
But then I think with the podcast and stuff, it's a very intimate medium, isn't it?
It really is. It's weird how, as you were saying, how people give a lot and tell a lot. I forget how much, because it's so casual and relaxing. I'm doing it every week. I forget how much of my life I tell people and put out there, and then you'll meet someone and they'll mention something, you'll be like, "How? What?" A lot of my friends don't particularly listen to my podcast, so there's a lot of strangers that know way more about me than my close friends, which is weird.
Yeah. Well, I find it weird if meet someone I kind of know quite well, and then I'm trying to tell them a story, and they go, "Yeah, I read it on your blog."
Yeah. So, all right.
So, okay.
Can you,
go, here's a picture of my daughter. Yes, saw it on Facebook.
If you knew you were going to see me, could you not have read my blog?
Could you just pretend I'm better than it?
I think that's weird. My brother left Facebook recently, and I think it's. I'm on Facebook, but there isn't anyone in my life that I care what they're doing constantly. There's not. There's not. Even I don't care what my mum had for lunch today. I do not give a shit. I love my mum, she's great, but I don't give a shit what she had for lunch, or where she is even. It's to an extent. I hope she's all right. I hope she's happy. I hope she's happy and everything's going well. But it's that weird thing that people... I'm fine with people posting, but it is weird then when people seem to feel you should have seen stuff or you should know stuff, and it's like, well, no, I'd rather meet up and discuss the highlights rather than trawl through all the shit, and have something to catch up about. And I do think it brings us together and apart at the same time. If you know what I mean, we all know a bit more, but there's not as much of an urgency to meet up and catch up because I know what you've been doing this last month.
Yeah, I think though if I'd had the internet properly in the 1990s, I'd spent a lot of time on my own playing Civilization.
Yep.
On Saturday, I think we talked about that on your podcast.
Yeah, and, you get to hear that twice.
Yeah. But I think if there'd been social media, I would have gone out more.
Yeah.
I think just because you would have, you'd have found. What I found amazing about Twitter was realising how many people are at home on Saturday evening watching X Factor or whatever. You go, oh, so everyone isn't out.
Yeah, completely. And I think that is a really good thing. And there's the horror of trolls and people being horrible and attacking people, but equally, I mean, a prime example has been all the transgender stuff recently with Caitlyn Jenner and all that. And the fact is, there are more opportunities for strangers to make you feel shit and to attack you, but also there's far more ability to know that there's millions of people just like you, or thousands of people just like you who are sitting at home playing Civilization or sitting at home doing whatever, and I think that's amazing. That's kind of a very cool part about it, that you can find these communities and find these like-minded people. Good.
It's also good for terrorists to create their plans and do awful things as well. That's another advantage of it.
It is really good. I know that they started doing... No, there was a thing when... One of the reasons...
That won't seem as raw when this comes out. So don't react as if this is... Something else will have happened. Yeah.
One of the reasons that Facebook and stuff can block up, and emails can block up if you use it on multiple computers, is because it was a thing for terrorists for a while, so that they couldn't be traced. Rather than sending messages, typing a message and saving it as a draft, but multiple people having access to that same login. Okay. So that's their plan spoilt now, I've told you. It's one in the eye for the terrorists. Can't get away with that shit anymore. We're all onto you. But yeah, I thought that was fascinating. That was a technique. So it's never actually transmitting across anywhere. It's saved in a communal place. I'm not a terrorist. Everyone's looking at me now. Just because I've given some pertinent information about how to be a terrorist, and I look a bit like a terrorist. It's outrageous.
Let's move away from terrorism. It's... that's just a general piece of advice for the world.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of terrorists listen to this podcast.
Me too.
Stop.
Speak with the
ones who are
terrorists.
Still here. Stop doing it. It's bad. I'm against it.
Yeah. I'm not a fan.
The audience seem on the fence. They're not. They're not like us saying we're against terrorism.
Yeah. They're not hating. They're not liking the prejudice against terrorists at the moment. Terrorists are people too, except the ones obviously that have already.
This is what will get us through. I tell you, this is the only way. This is the only way. This is the only way we'll get through this. What song would you like to see replace our national anthem? Have you got? You should write a national anthem. I think our national anthem's rubbish.
Yeah, it's not very good, is it?
It's really rubbish, even on the low scale of national anthems.
Yeah, it's really slow.
Yeah.
It's got no vibe. Lyrically weak.
And the only bit we should keep in is da na na na. That's it.
Yeah. It's a good build.
That's the really good bit.
Yeah.
Whatever you change, it has to have that in it.
I don't. There's a lot of lovely songs. I'd want a song that reflects how crappy we are as a nation. No, I wouldn't. That's a terrible idea, isn't it? We should be covering that up.
Well, there's quite a lot of verses in the current one we have that do point out how crappy we are, but we don't tend to sing them.
Yeah. There's darkness in our original one.
Get through.
I would go for... God, this is a really hard question, but I'm liking it. It's not entertaining for these guys, but I'm liking thinking about it.
Well, we can wait.
Yeah, no, there's no rush. You're not going anywhere. No. I'd like to go for Shake It Off by Taylor Swift. Because it's just so catchy. It's hard not to enjoy. But I guess we couldn't have an American one, could we?
Well, we could.
That'd be fine.
Got a German royal family, so I don't see why.
Robbie Williams, Let Me Entertain You. Imagine that. Everyone can sing it. Because the sequel was that Robbie was cheeky rather than actually having a good voice.
Yeah.
So we can all sing, because everyone can sing this.
And does it have the rap bit in it? Is it I'm an honorary Sean Connery? Is that one?
Oh, that'd be... No, that was... which one was that?
That's going to be that one.
Rock DJ, was it? Oh, yeah. Let's go with Rock DJ.
Yeah, Rock
that
DJ.
Just confuse them. Now we'll all gather
and
around
the Queen,
to sing
the
Rock
Queen,
DJ.
whoever the Queen or the King is has to do the rap.
Yeah.
I'm an honorary Sean Connery. I can probably do it. That's the terrible
it was Millennium was the honorary Sean Connery one.
Was it?
A Millennium collaborating with Kylie, the Queen, the true Queen of England.
Yeah.
So let's go with a Millennium, because that's
Millennium.
current. It won't go out of date.
There'll be another one.
Yeah, exactly.
There'll be another one along before too long. You'll see. Well, it's been lovely talking to you for a long time this week.
Yeah, we've talked a lot.
We've talked an awful lot. I've got other questions for you. I'm just telling you that.
Thanks.
If you had to have sex with an animal,
Yep.
if you had to,
Yep.
what animal would you choose to have sex with?
Monkey.
Any particular breed? You seem to have thought about it before.
I'm quite private about my private life, Richard. I don't really want to go into... No, they're cute, aren't they? And they don't look that dangerous.
Yeah.
I'm not a big one. I'm not an idiot.
That's kind of worse.
Oh, wait, is it consensual?
Yeah. Well, that opens up a whole another field of question about whether it's possible for an animal to consent. I don't think it is, but I don't think it's also because it's an animal, it doesn't have a moral code, so you're all right.
Cool. We'll stick with a monkey then.
Yeah. Because they don't mind, do they? They don't know.
No, they love it. Dirty monkeys.
Good.
I was at the zoo once and one started masturbating as soon as he saw me. If that's not consent, I don't know what is.
It's definitely coquettish. It's a coquettish way to behave.
If you meet someone and they start masturbating as soon as they see you, that's more than say if they're playing with their hair, they like you. If they're publicly masturbating,
I'm not sure. I think a lot of
they're into you.
I think those guys who masturbate on buses and stuff that I've heard exist.
Is this monkeys still, or
no? They're human people.
Humans, right? Yeah.
But I think if you were masturbating and then you're looking at it and you went and go, would you like to go out for a drink?
Yeah.
I think they would be put off.
Yeah.
Maybe. I think what they're getting out of it is is the cheeky naughtiness of what they're doing. I'm guessing.
I didn't realise in your question what animal would you have sex with. There was a full date to go on beforehand.
No,
I didn't realise that was there.
I'm not talking about people. The masturbating humans.
All right,
You've got to feel sorry for those guys.
Yeah.
At least invite someone back to a hotel room with a high-backed armchair, and then it's at least do that. I've never done that. I don't know where that story began. Never done anything like it, but I like it. What did you have a deluded thing like my time that I was worried about people would time travel back? I bet you must have lots of deluded things. As a child, this crazy messed up voice in the head child. Did you have a thing where... I mean, that is quite... I genuinely was concerned about it. I was concerned about people travelling back through time and seeing me poo or whatever.
Poo. Yeah.
And judge me for it.
I mean, I pray it never happens. Just want to start with that.
But that's quite... But it's interesting that if time travel became and availability, and time travel tourism took off,
Yeah.
that would be a weird thing. You know, would there be laws set in place to stop that happening? Would they say, well, you can't go back and see Abraham Lincoln having a bath?
Yeah.
Or
Out
would
of
you be able?
respect.
But then if you had it, some people would want to see that,
Yeah.
and they'd say, well, I want to go to the Abraham Lincoln in the
And it
bath.
becomes a bit of a class war on that, doesn't it? You can go and look at other people having a bath, but not Abraham Lincoln.
It doesn't have to be
Does he
Abraham
think
Lincoln.
he
That was
is?
just an example.
I'd like to see it.
Yeah. And whether he still wears the hat in the bath.
Yeah, exactly. I bet he does. I bet he floats
I think
it like a little
I think he's
duck.
got a little hat for his penis.
Yeah. I don't know if I had any ones. I remember I was, for a long time at school, I was really worried that I was really wanted to conceal if I was wearing a vest. I didn't want people to know I was wearing a vest. So yeah, that was a major concern for a long while.
Yeah.
It was a time between, do I want to be cold and not wear a vest, or do I
Yeah.
want to wear a vest and people might know that I'm wearing a vest? And
Yeah.
for some reason, it seems a shameful act.
Well, there was
wear a
loads of
vest.
things. There was in our school. If you if you had a shit at school, that was
Yeah.
a shameful thing.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. It should
Yeah,
be
but you weren't-
celebrated.
It should be, but to the extent,
Bravery.
to the extent, because if you try to do it, people would jump up and look over you and laugh at you and go,
Yeah.
you're shitting. Yes,
I am.
If you were normal, you would shit in the morning and the evening.
Yeah.
I once shat myself at school because I didn't want to have to go. And I was in the sick room and everyone else was in lessons.
Yeah.
And I voluntarily sat in the sick room and shat myself
Yeah.
rather than go to the toilet and shit and have a shit in the toilet.
Yeah.
And then walked home with the shit in my pants.
Yeah. And that was preferable than
It
people
was,
knowing
that
that
was.
you
And you know what?
let stuff out your
I
body.
was 28 years old and I was one of the teachers. I wasn't, I was a child. Otherwise it would be weird. Me sitting in my own shit in the... Yeah, isn't that weird? And that's how... But then there were those codes. And where did that code
Yeah.
come? Where did the vest
What's
code
wrong
come from?
with
Because
a
I remember
vest?
I had the vest thing that was...
I don't mind a vest
If you
now.
wore a vest, you were weak or
Weird,
something.
yeah.
Like you were a child.
Yeah,
you were like a
of course you were
6-year-old
weak.
child.
You are weak. That is a fact. Children are weak. And they do shit.
They certainly do. Oh my goodness, time has flown by, like on its winged flight of shit. It was going so well. No, it's been really good fun talking to you.
Yes,
and really
you.
thanks so much for coming along. And you can go and buy an apron on your website.
Yep, you can do that.
Does the apron sell? How does the apron?
SpeechDevelopmentRecords.com.
I once interviewed Lucy Pinder, the page 3 model.
Yes.
And she has a website
Yep.
that sells all kinds of malarkey on there, largely pictures of her with no clothes on.
Yep.
And one of the things she sells is a bookmark
Brilliant.
with a picture of her naked on it.
Brilliant.
And I asked her how many bookmarks she sold,
Yeah.
because I didn't envisage many of her fans.
No.
Well, you know, oh, well, they must. Oh, I've got so far through this pornographic magazine, I don't want to lose my place.
Yeah.
And, you know, that may be
The story
insulting.
is so engaging.
Do many people buy the apron?
Yeah, it sells all right.
Yeah,
It was launched as a barbecue apron.
Right, okay.
It's now like a bacon apron. I'm changing for the season, so it's a bit of a bake-off thing. No, the apron generally goes down all right, but
Yeah.
I've always got stick because the design of it. I've got a line that was like one of my most popular lines was on a song called Introduction. It just says, "You see a mousetrap, I see free cheese and a fucking challenge." And everyone wanted me to put that on the T-shirt. I was like, I don't want to just put a lyric on a T-shirt. So I did this. I got this guy to design this complex design where it's a question, and it says at the top it says, "What do you see?" And then there's a drawing of a mousetrap, and then there's some lines, and then in my own handwriting I've written "free cheese and a fucking challenge," and then signed it. And it didn't sell that well because it wasn't just the line. It's confusing. People can't get that witty line from that. They have to look and go, "So that's a mousetrap." And what he's saying is, so yeah, I thought I'll pop it on a fucking apron instead. See if that sells.
Bang.
Yeah, hit. Yeah, all wearing it on Bake Off.
Yeah.
Have you not seen them?
I'm going to bring out an apron as well.
If you could let a Lucy Pinder know, she can have a free apron if she desires.
Okay.
In exchange for a bookmark.
Bookmark.
If
I've
you
got one of the
pass that on.
She gave him one of the bookmarks. She sent it on to me.
Right now, I'd still rather deal directly with her.
Ladies and gentlemen, Scroobius Pip. We're back next week. Come and see us again. Goodbye.
around you.
How'd you like them sky potatoes?